The Estey Organ Factory, in Brattleboro, Vermont, 1874. The Estey Organ Factory was the largest free-reed organ factory in the world. How was it built? And how did it work? One, the foundation. The Estey Organ Company was founded in Brattleboro, Vermont. Vermont is also known as the Green Mountains State. Brattleboro is located on the Connecticut River, which forms the eastern border between Vermont and New Hampshire. In Brattleboro, the Whetstone Brook flows into the Connecticut River. Brattleboro, Vermont, USA, 1866. In 1866, there were 3 free-reed organ factories in Brattleboro. One factory stood at the Main Street Bridge, where the Whetstone Brook flows into the Connecticut River. This factory was built in 1858 by Jacob Estey and his then partner, Hartzell Green. Estey and Green built the perfect melodeon at this factory. The perfect melodeon was developed by Estey and Green in 1856. In 1866-67, another melodeon factory was built in Brattleboro, just above Whetstone Brook, founded by former partners of Jacob Estey. The Brattleboro Melodeon Company. And Estey built yet another factory in Brattleboro in 1866 on Whetstone Brook. In this factory, the Estey cottage organ was built. The cottage organ was invented by Estey in 1863. Founder Jacob Estey came to Brattleboro in 1835, at the age of 21, and married Desdemona Wood in 1837. Jacob and Desdemona lived together in Brattleboro, in a house on Canal Street. Two, the new factory. In 1869, Estey purchased a large plot of land on a plateau above the town center. A new factory, consisting of 4 main buildings and outbuildings, was planned for the plateau. The first building was completed in 1869, and buildings 2, 3, and 4 were completed in 1870. The new location offered protection against the flooding that sometimes occurs on Whetstone Brook. Estey's first factories, down by the Main Street Bridge, had been ravaged by fire several times. That's why great attention was paid to fire safety for this new factory. The new factory buildings were clad with fireproof slate tiles. Each floor was equipped with several water buckets, pails, handheld water fire grenades, and also with a fire extinguisher. A boiler house was built in the background to supply the buildings with heat and power. In building number 1, the lumber was cut, and the organ case was manufactured. Building number 2 housed the machine shop. The reeds, the action mechanism, and the bellows were manufactured. In building number 3, the organs were assembled and finished. And building number 4 housed the setup department. The instruments were finally tuned and packed into boxes for the transport. The office was also located in building number 4. 3. Extension from 4 to 6 buildings. Demand for Estey free-reed organs far surpassed predictions, which is why 2 more main buildings were constructed in 1871. Number 1 and 6 were the 2 new buildings from 1871. The 1871 Estey catalog gives a brief description of this 6 main buildings, numbered 1 to 6 at the time. The 6 main buildings were all 100 feet long, 3.5 stories high, and about 30 feet wide, with 4 rows of windows on the front and back. The buildings stood in a row and faced Burge Street, spaced about 40 feet apart. Building number 2 is an exception. It is about 38 feet wide, and has 5 rows of windows, on both the front and back. Building number 1 was used for case making. Building number 2 housed the lumber, and also served for case making. In the basement was a patented steam exhaust fan that transported the dust and wooden chips to the boiler house. Building number 3 was used to manufacture the reeds and the action. In building number 4, the free-reed organs were assembled. Building number 5 was used for tuning the instruments. The office was also located here. And in building number 6, the instruments were tuned and packed into boxes. All the buildings were connected at the rear, at the level of the second floor, by a bridge. A trolley, running on a rail, transported all the components from one building to the next. Between buildings 3 and 4 was the boiler house, using a coreless steam engine, and a chimney, approximately 100 feet high. Four. Extension, from 6 to 8 buildings. Demand for free reed organs continued to rise, and in 1872, another main building was constructed. This photograph of the rear of the Estey factory may show exactly this phase of development. In 1872, the J. Estey and Company became the Estey Organ Company, with Jacob Estey as president, Levi Fuller, son-in-law, as vice president, and Julius Jacob Estey as secretary and treasurer. By 1873, the factory had grown to 8 main buildings. Organ production had almost tripled within 3 years. 1870, with 4 main buildings, 250 organs per month. 1873, with 8 main buildings, 700 organs per month. Estey Organ Company, 1874. 8 main buildings, each 100 feet long, facing Bridge Street. Lumber yards. Dry house, B. Fire steam engine. Boiler house. Dry house, A. Blacksmith shop. Shipping house. Gas house. This is, more or less, how the Estey Organ Factory is portrayed in most old illustrations. 1875. 1876, Brattleboro Birdside View. 1876. A special illustration of the Estey Organ Company is shown in a lithograph from 1876. This lithography shows the 8 main buildings and 6 outbuildings individually. At the top center is a group portrait of founder Jacob Estey, right, Levi Knight Fuller, son-in-law, center, in the middle, and son Julius Jacob, left. The former Estey factories, down by the Main Street Bridge, and on Whetstone Brook, were then sold to a wooden toy manufacturer. Estey Free Reed Organ Factories, 1857 to 1869. Five. How it works. I have tried to understand how the factory operated, with its 8 main buildings, by using Sanborn maps descriptions, and drawings, or photographs, of the factory buildings. At first, according to the Sanborn map of 1885, every floor of every 8 main building was equipped with additional fire protection. Building number 1 continued to be used for case making. In building number 2, wood was cut, and reeds were manufactured, and cases were built. Work on cases also took place in building number 3. Building number 3 had an elevator. In building number 4, the action, the reed board, and technical parts were manufactured. Building number 4 also had an elevator. In building number 5, which also had an elevator, finishing work, such as wood decorations and action adjustments, were carried out. Building number 6, which was also equipped with an elevator, the musical instruments were one more time checked and tuned. This building also housed the office, connected to all the other buildings by a speaking tube and bell network. In building number 7, minor repairs were carried out, the instruments were tuned and stored. The instruments were varnished and finished in building number 8. The organs were then sent to the shipping house, where they were prepared for worldwide transport. Six. Energy power. The boiler house. The boiler house was the main energy source for the factory. The boiler house was equipped with a coreless steam engine, which was initially fired by 4 boilers. Example of a coreless engine. During the winter month, the main buildings were supplied with heat via a steam pipe from the boiler house. Wood chips and dust, produced during case manufacturing, were transported from the main buildings to the boiler house using a patent steam exhaust fan, which was located in the basement of building number 2. The wood shavings from the case making were used, together with coal, to fire the boilers. On the 1885 Sanborn map, you can see 2 pipes running from below up to the plateau to the boiler house. One pipe is described as a 3-inch supply water pipe and runs from the boiler house to Whetstone Brook. In between, there is a building or pump, described as Pump K, used as supply for boilers. The second pipe is described as a dust transfer. At the lower end, at the foot of the bank, there is what appears to be a small hut where a dust pipe ends. This little hut can probably be seen in the 1876 Brattleboro bird's eye view. The 1891 Sanborn map shows a dynamo in the boiler house, which probably indicating a switch from gas to electricity. The gas house. Before the introduction of electricity, gas lamps were used as a light source in the factory. The gas was stored in this gas house, gasometer, at the front of the factory. The open space, next to the gas house, was often used as an additional lumber storage area. Thanks to steam power, it was possible to build and run a factory in a small town like Brattleboro, which in 1873 had a population of no more than around 5,000, that supplied the whole world with free-reed organs. Seven. Fire protection. Fire protection was taken very seriously on the factory site. Several cistern water reservoirs were built on the factory grounds. With a capacity of 15,000 to 25,000 gallons. The 1906 Sanborn map even shows a 100,000-gallon water reservoir located between buildings 4 and 5. Several double hydrants were installed on the ground. These hydrants were connected to their own water reservoir, situated just above the hillside. Provided the necessary water pressure for the hydrants. The fire brigade, consisting of around 35 firefighters, was equipped with 2 steam-powered fire engines. Steam-powered fire engines, 1 Amoskeag, 1 Clapp and Jones. Strictly supervised watchmen were on duty around the clock throughout the factory to monitor fire safety. 8. Lumber. Lumber was stored wherever there was space. Lumber was transported via a rail system to the relevant buildings. The Estey Organ Company also operated a sawmill near the factory. 9. Dry houses. 2 dry houses in the background are described in the 1871 catalog. They are also visible in the 1875-76 factory drawings and 1876 Brattleboro bird's eye view. According to the 1885 Sanborn map, a railing connected Dry House A with the 8 buildings railing. In 1885, the machine shop and the bellows manufacturing were located in the former Dry House A. Fire protection. Dry House 1, 4 fire grenades, and 1 Babcock extinguisher on the first floor. And 1 Babcock fire extinguisher on the second floor. A double hydrant was also located next to the building. Dry House B was replaced in 1885 by a new dry house. The new dry house can be seen on the 1886 Brattleboro bird's eye view. (10) Shipping. Once the instruments were completed, in buildings 8, 7, or 6, they were forwarded to the shipping house. On the 1885 Sanborn map, rails connecting buildings 6, 7, and 8 to the shipping house. In the shipping house, boxes nailed, orphan storage, packing, and shipping was done. Shipping house, Sanborn 1885. Shipping house, 1880. The organs had then to be transported from the factory to the Brattleboro train station, located down by the Connecticut River. On the way down to the train station, the carriages had to overcome a slope of about 25 meters. The organ boxes were loaded onto horse-drawn carts and transported from the factory to the train station. In 1876, about 40 Estey organs were shipped to Europe each week. In old photographs or drawings of Brattleboro, one sometimes sees images of carriages loaded with Estey organs on their way to the train station. Brattleboro had been connected to the American rail network since 1849. Until 1960, more than 500,000 Estey organs were shipped from this station to the United States, Europe, and around the world. Over 500,000 free reed organs were built in this factory. 1872, 350 employees, 700 organs per month. 1880s, 500 employees, 1,600 to 1,800 organs per month. 1880, 100,000. 1888, 200,000. 1892, 250,000. 11. Esteyville. Brattleboro, 1876. Brattleboro, 1869. Since 1869, several new homes have been built above the factory's ground. In 1869, Estey purchased not only the factory ground, but also a large portion of the land behind the factory's ground. The land was divided into individual plots. Many of the factory workers bought land from Estey and built a house there. The residential area behind the factory became known as Esteyville. Esteyville, street names: Estey Street, Organ Street, Cherry Street, Chestnut Street, Cottage Street, Pleasant Street, Vine Street, Maple Street. According to the 1906 Sanborn map, the water reservoir for the factory's double hydrants was located at the corner of Pleasant and Chestnut Streets. 12. Estey Organ Factories and Residences at Brattleboro. The old Estey Melodeon factory, built in 1858, was sold to a wooden toy manufacturer. No longer exists today. The former Brattleboro Melodeon Company was taken over by E.P. Carpenter in 1885 and continued to operate as the Carpenter Company until 1917. That factory no longer exists today. And the former Estey Cottage Organ Factory, built in 1866, was also sold to a wooden toy manufacturer. That factory no longer exists today. Founder, Jacob Estey, and his wife Desdemona Wood, lived in a house on Canal Street from 1837 onwards. The house still stands today. Son-in-law, Levi Knight Fuller, and his wife Abby Emily Estey, built a house at Pine Heights in 1872. The house no longer exists. And Jacob Estey's son, Julius Jacob Estey, purchased the former Stoddard House in 1872, together with his wife, Florence Carpenter Gray. The house was renamed Florence Terrace. The house no longer exists. The Estey Organ Factory was built in 1869 and completed its 8 main buildings in 1873. From 1869 to 1960, the factory produced more than 500,000 free reed organs. And from 1901 onward, pipe organs as well. From 1947 and 1954 onward, electronic organs were also manufactured in this factory. Significant after 1873 was the construction of a large hall for assembling pipe organs in 1902. And the merging of main buildings 7 and 8 in 1906-7. The number of additional buildings has varied over time. The Estey Organ Factory closed in 1960 and was sold in 1961. On Google Maps, you can still see the 7 slate-clad factory buildings on Burge Street. Today, various companies and private individuals occupy the site. Nearly 40 years before Henry Ford began assembly line production of his Ford Model T in Detroit, Michigan, in 1914, free reed organs were already being manufactured on an assembly line in Brattleboro. Using a modular system, it was possible to create several models with different configurations. Also, the house of founder, Jacob Estey, still stands today on Canal Street in Brattleboro. There is an Estey Museum on the former factory grounds, on Burge Street, in Brattleboro. The entrance is located at the rear of Building 4. The origins of the free reed organ date back more than 3,000 years to Asia. In China, there is a legend that the creator goddess Nuwa gave the first clay humans the free reed organ sheng, so they could imitate the harmonious and peaceful song of the feng huang bird. Submerged petroglyphs of the Native Americans near Brattleboro on the West River tell us that Brattleboro, too, has been a mystical place for centuries, and it may have been this special energy that captured the sound of the feng huang bird when the first free reed organs were built in Brattleboro in 1846, making this small town the world capital of free reed organ production. Brattleboro, Indian rock. Ancient Native American petroglyphs, carved into a rock formation on the West River, near its confluence with the Connecticut River, have been submerged since 1909 due to the construction of the Vernon Dam. Where things get lost. Coming next. How a American free reed organ, alias pump organ, is built and how it works.